Okay. Well, welcome to tonight's Master Gardener class. And if everybody wants to come on in and get seated. One of the things that we were doing is we're going to have the potluck next week. So I've forgotten her name. Rosie. Speak with Rosie Wilcox. If you haven't signed up to bring something and you want to bring something, check with her. You folks online, I put in the chat if you want to just add something there, if you're planning on bringing something, and I'll pass that on to her. So, and does anybody have any questions? Start out that way. When I initially put this on the schedule, it's something that I had not taught before, and I hadn't been fully over it, gone through it, studied on it. And when I started looking at it last week, I realized that it replicates what we've talked about quite a bit with the soils. So we're going to move through the first part fairly quick, and then we're going to get into what's called the Tennessee Smart Yards program. Now, this is kind of like the Healthy Yards Initiative. There was someone in here that's involved with that. Okay, that's you. Okay. So I don't know if they might have gotten some of their information from UT and some of the sources. So you may see a lot of things very similar to what we're doing here in Clarksville, the Healthy Yards program and Tennessee Smart Yards. So we're basically just looking at stewardship of the land and water management in the landscape. So stewardship, we just want to look at the big picture. We want to see what the water does in the landscape, look at Tennessee's water resources, soil, water, plants, human impacts is one thing that I really want to emphasize. And then we're going to go over the 9 principles of Tennessee Smart Yards. So basically stewardship, what's the big picture? Everything that we're doing comes down the Mississippi and ends up out in the ocean. Okay. We've taught our farmers and, tried to get them to change their practices on soil management, to go to no-till programs, to use cover crops and other ways to keep their, keep their soil in place rather than it running off into the river every time we get a big rain. But this still happens, and it's due to the human impacts that we're going to go over. But just as you till the soil, as you build and you move and, move the soil and build houses and things, there's just going to be an impact. So we want to be good stewards of the environment. So we want to use our resources wisely. So we want to look at our ecosystem, what's our ecosystem services. You look at the ecosystem, everything works together. You can't affect one thing without affecting another. So you affect the stream water, you're going to affect the fish, you're going to affect the swimmers, you're going to affect the boaters, you're going to, everything from here down. So, and it all relates to human being. Like I said, I'm going to skip over some of this stuff. So water in the landscape, of course, we know our water cycle. Now, one thing that I don't understand is that it seems like we are using up more water than what we are returning to the earth these days. Have you all noticed how low the creeks are? I mean, how low the lakes are. Now, I know Cumberland River is controlled by TVA, and they can shut that down and they put it at their winter levels and stuff like that. But if you go, just to go creek stomping, look at Rotary Park. If you went there 20 years ago and you go now, it's all sediment. I mean, we used to go and play, and even in a couple areas while my kids were small, that it was deep enough to jump in and get the full body wet. There's not hardly any spots like that anymore. There's more just dry streams. So, my question, and I don't have a good answer for it unless one of you all do, is where is our water going?
We are getting about the same water, but it doesn't soak into people's soil because it's putting asphalt and
That's true.
Things on it. So that's why you'll have a flood. And then
that's true. And we talk a lot about, with the groups that I work with on urban development, we talk about the green infrastructure and the gray infrastructure of communities. Does anybody know what the green infrastructure is? What do you think that would be?
Soil,
grass, plantings, earth,
greenways,
parks, Well, those big things with limbs, the trees that provide shade. Okay. Okay. So, we are losing our canopy cover in Clarksville. And that is just going to increase the heat islands, and it's going to make it more and more uncomfortable to live in the city. And that's just, the way it's going to be, because we are putting down more concrete, more asphalt, rather than including green spaces and tree plantings. When you take down 200-year-old tree, you can't replace that overnight. And we always tell people, you're planting a tree today for 50 years from now. And yes, that's a good thing to do. Everybody should be planting trees, the right tree in the right place. But we also need to advocate and, start maybe doing more to protect our larger trees that we have around Clarksville. And I won't get on my soapbox too bad. Sure. Okay, maybe. Okay, Chanel Allen is bringing chips and dip. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I put it in there what they were what they were. Okay, so your watershed example. And so does anybody know what our watershed? I'm just gonna throw questions out to you all tonight. What is our watershed or watersheds that we might be in this part of Tennessee? Red River. Okay. The Red River compact and the land between the lakes. Okay. So your watershed example is just all the land around your water areas. Okay. So all the tributaries that lead into the bigger rivers, that lead into eventually into the ocean, and our lakes, ponds, all that is our watershed. So everything that we do in Clarksville is going to end up downstream somewhere, just like we're downstream of Nashville, unfortunately. So everything that goes on in Nashville flushes on down to Clarksville and then goes on, So the Cumberland River is not the cleanest in the world. I mean, me and my fiance, we boat on it every year, every summer. And I swore when I first started going out, I'm not getting in that water. I'll sit in the boat and I'm not getting in that water until it got to be about 100 degrees. And I'm like, I'm getting in the water. And I thought, then we said we were just immune to everything because we've been in the Cumberland. So, but if you look at different rivers in different areas, there's turbidity. The barges run up and down the Cumberland, so they're constantly turning over that mud down at the bottom. And so it is kind of a muddy river. If you go farther north where they don't have that barge traffic, like the Caney Fork River or things like that, you're not going to see so much of that because it's not so stirred up. Or if you go down to your favorite little creek right after a storm, and it's usually clear, you can see the bottom, you're going to see a lot of sediment and residue and things like that going down the creek. And so it's kind of eye-opening to go down and look at the creek while it's dirty, and then look at the creek while it's good and clean, and you want to swim in it. So a lot of our streams are impacted. I can't really give you big numbers, but almost all of our streams are impacted in Tennessee, which means they have some sort of pollution that is above acceptable levels. So we all get those letters from our municipality. Seems like every few months out where I'm at, for either E. coli or some type of herbicide runoff. And they'll tell you that your water's still safe to drink, but you have this in your water right now. So it kind of makes you question what you're bathing in. Yeah, you may decide not to drink it, but you're still bathing in it. You're washing your clothes in it, things like that. So, but at this point, there's not a lot that we can do except for to change our behaviors going forward. But that's a watershed. It's just the area surrounding your water supply. We have riparian zones and buffers. Now, buffer is just planted areas next to the stream so that stream does not erode. Okay. So you'll see here on your right, you have like some smaller grasses because you still want to get to the stream. I mean, if you're like me and you live close to the stream, you want to get to the stream. I mean, I'm a river rat, so I want to get down there and get in there. So, but leave your grasses, small trees, and then maybe venture into the larger trees as you come up in your landscape. And so everything that's coming off from your home is going through a filter system before it hits that stream down there. So when you wash your car, okay, it's going to go through the roots it's going to go through the grass, it's going to go through those tree roots, and some of it's going to be absorbed, and some of the pollution that's in it is going to be absorbed, and it's going to be stopped before it gets into the stream down below. So you just want to try to get your maximum benefits. And the plant material for buffers, like I said, a mixture of grasses, native grasses and shrubs tend to work better. I'm not going to rule out non-natives. I would be aware of invasives. The ones that we know are invasive are privet, the Paulownia, oh my gosh, there's so many of them, Bradford pear, all of those. You just want to avoid planting because they're taking over our natural forested canopy. I mean, normally we have an oak, hickory, maple forest. That's the predominant species here. And so now when you go out into the forest, you're starting to see, like I said, the Paulownia or the princess tree. You see a lot of privet and Bradford pear or calorie pear coming back up from seed. And so if you are not proactive on your land on removing those things, they're just going to continue to spread and to spread. And so anyway, so shrubs, trees, and you want to create a canopy, 50 to 100-foot canopy. So those are some large trees. And then you want to go with some smaller shrubs, that's your understory, and then a mix of grasses. Again, a diverse concoction of plants. So for a large canopy, you would think maybe red maple, the river birch. Just make sure you've got a good area next to the water for river birch or sycamore and the willow, because they do like to have wet feet. And so that's an area that could be, you normally see these trees by the streams and lakes. So look at what's naturally growing and kind of mimic that in your landscape as you design it and grow. Persimmon, that's not something you want to grow right next to your house. They're quite messy. They get get pests on them, the bees and stuff like that. So you wouldn't want one outside your door, but you may want one out on the wood line, especially if you like to eat persimmons or make persimmon jelly. I don't know why anybody would want to, but I don't know. I got spoiled on my dad gave me a green persimmon one time when I was a young child. And yeah, that just, I would, and then somebody got me to try one of the orange ones one time, and I was like, "Oh, no, this is gross." So some people like them. I can't take the texture.
You know that sweet one?
Well, it was kind of sweet, but it was still that. Yeah, I don't know. They're getting better. I guess the riper they get, the better they are. Yeah, yeah. You just pick them up and eat them off the ground. Yeah, oh, yeah. You get that feeling. And then, so understory trees, these would be a little bit smaller. Our native serviceberry, amalanthus, has a white flower on it early in the spring. Definitely a good replacement tree for Bradford pear if you want a white blooming tree and you have full sun. Because of course, our dogwoods like a little bit of shade. Eastern redbud, the flowering dogwood, red mulberry, the hop hornbeam, and smooth sumac. So many people spray their sumac. I see it all along the roadsides, and I love sumac, especially this time of year. You notice how it just gets brilliant red, and it's got those little seed heads on it. So it's really, I think it's a really pretty plant. I'd just let it go. You can always, it's kind of like bamboo. You just have to cut it down on a regular basis, or it will get out of control. But it's not a really long-lived plant, but it reproduces from seed and will come back. So, some more plant material suggestions for buffers. Hazel. I don't know what a hazel alder is. Now, I know an alder tree will not grow in Tennessee. I'm thinking witch hazel is what they meant to put there. I'm going to guess, or I'm going to suggest witch hazel would be a larger shrub, red chokecherry, American beautyberry. Now, a lot of people don't like these. Yep, she's looking them up online. She got good pictures. Hazelnut is another tree that's not planted very often. You can get those through the Arbor Day Association, where you can order, 14 free trees. If you make a donation, they come and they're about this tall. But what you do is put them in 1-gallon pots and grow them out for a couple of years, then put them out in your landscape and let the deer eat them. We were having a conversation about the deer earlier. But but those, yeah, hazelnut's good. That's something a little bit different. Winterberry, spice bush, elderberry. A lot of people are kind of on the elderberry kick. And I'll give you a little inside information. When we have our um, Arbor Day tree giveaway, it's the first Friday in March, so that's actually March 1st this year, and we are going to have elderberry seedlings. So get in line early. So, and I'll send out that information. Yeah, we gave out some last year. And so we are going to. It'll be on March 1st. I'll give you all the information when it gets closer to the date. But Tennessee Arbor Day is always on the first Friday in March. And we were looking over, I'm on the tree board also. And so we were looking at what our distribution was going to be. We've got 4,400 trees to hand out this year. So not only are we going to ask you, to come and help, but we're going to allow you to get trees too. But that's one of our big activities where we get the master gardeners to volunteer, and we've done a drive-through. And so, anyway, grasses and sedges, especially if you've got, maybe poor soil or, just an area that's rocky, next to the creek is not always the best conditions. It can be, but you can use the big and the split beard blue stem, broom sedge, giant river cane. Those two right there, they make me kind of go, ooh. Any type of cane, but the giant river cane is supposed to not be as invasive. It's not like a bamboo. It's a little different. It's not as invasive. Side oaks grama is another type of a grass, little blue stem, switchgrass varieties, Indian grass, river oats, bottlebrush grasses. Have you seen the pink muley grasses here lately? You just see them as you're going down the side of the road, and they're bright pink right now. And unfortunately, I think they are an annual, or they're just not a long-lived perennial. I know when I've had them, I've only had them like a couple of years, and then boom, they're gone. So, but they are beautiful and have that pink color. And purple love grass, several others that you can pick from. So, yeah. That's a native one, yes. Yeah. It's okay. This is some surprising statistics. In the average suburban household, which I guess they're basing that on 4 people, 2 adults, 2 children, maybe, 400 gallons per day. You realize you use that much water in a day? I don't know. I have a pool, and 750 gallons in one day because somebody left the hose on in my pool. Yeah, I got a call. I was like, okay, who left the water on? Because it was down a little, and then of course I go home and it's overflowing. And yeah, but an estimated 30% of that 400 gallons is used for your lawn and garden, and it's basically just wasted. So my philosophy is if you can't eat it, it doesn't get watered. So I try to do edible landscaping. I'm not a big turf person, but if you are, you need to make sure that you're doing your soil testing, putting out the correct varieties. But it does. You're to have a good lawn in Tennessee, you really have to pour the water to it, especially during the summertime. And our gardens, of course, you can't have the food that you want to produce to eat if you don't have water supply.
Automatic water system. Doesn't work. Go by and pour it right.
Yes, and there are tools that you can have on there, that are when it starts to rain, the system will kick off. So we were up at Fall Creek Falls at a conference last week, and of course you have 100 foresters out there, looking over the new lodge and everything. And I was just devastated. One was they were drowning the trees at night. We were sitting outside our hotel room, and the water sprinklers kick on. And I thought, well, they're going to kick off pretty soon. I got up in the middle of the night, and I peeked out, and the water was still on. I don't know when it stopped. Maybe in the morning. I don't know. But this was like 9 o'clock at night. They started them, and they ran them through the night. They had a kind of a bowl area where they have a fire pit outside. Very nice little area. 6 dead trees. It's deader than a doornail. And I was like, I had to go up to them and do like this. I said, are they just fake trees that they've put out there for some reason? Or no, they were going in the ground, looked like a telephone pole. And so it was just really kind of disappointing to see, how they're managing that, because you would think that they have foresters involved, that they would be taking better care of their trees and planting them. But anyway, I'm sorry, I get off track here. So plants and water, we need precipitation. If we haven't had precipitation in a while, what happens? It runs off. And then we have evaporation from the plants and soil. And then you want that to equal good infiltration into the soil. And we've talked about that a couple times. So the infiltration enables the uptake of water, which supports transpiration in the plants, which is essential for plant growth and survival. And we've seen this last week, so I'm not going to get stuck on it again. Ooh, cool. Ooh, ah. So some factors that we know from last week. Again, I'll let you read over those, but your soil type, the surface cover is very important, compaction, things like that. These are just some demonstrations that soil Natural Resource Conservation Service will go around and they'll teach kids this, or they'll come out to some of our field days and they'll have these set up, and they literally just start the water at the top. And of course, the mulched area with the soil underneath it, you can see there's less runoff. There's less sediment than if you just had bare soil. So that's your example of bare soil. And again, there's your compacted soil. Your water's not getting down there. It's unable to penetrate down to where the roots need it. And then so there it's not available to plants because it runs off. So evaporation, plants are just naturally going to lose water directly to the atmosphere by evaporation. And but plants will use this transpiration technique to manage their temperature, as they would close up their stomata. And they will just kind of look like they're shrinking up and they're dying, but they're really not. They're just protecting themselves. They're kind of wilted down, and that's because their stomata is closed and they're not breathing and they're not taking in water or things like that. So your water movement, you need to support water movement throughout the plant. Allow the carbon dioxide to enter photosynthesis, and this all equals growth and survival. That's it. So the big picture: water availability in the soil depends on infiltration and water holding capacity of the soil. Water use by plants depends on evaporation and transpiration losses, and those are strongly influenced by the environment. So here's where we come in. And at the conference, they said, this one speaker made the statement that the two-legged varmint causes much more trouble than the four-legged. So we cause more damage to our environment than the things that we think of as pests, are deer and the groundhogs and things like that. So, annual precipitation in Tennessee. Let's see. So we are about right here, Montgomery County. So one more over. No, other way. Whoops. Okay. I always think we're the little crook up there, but we're right next to the little crook. So, okay. So we are going to get about 50 to 54 inches of rain annually throughout the year. So you get to these green areas, they're going to get a little bit more rain, 54 to 58, 58 to 62. As you go into the mountainous areas of East Tennessee, they can get less than 46 inches per year sometimes. So, and a lot of that comes from the snow up in the mountains as it starts to thaw and it comes down and feeds those tributaries and streams and creeks and stuff. So East Tennessee can be kind of dry and arid. It's also based on its soil, because they have a limestone soil out there. It doesn't hold water very well, limestone and sandy. And then we've got some pockets right here that can be kind of arid, and that is kind of in the basin of Tennessee there. So we do get a lot of rain but in some areas we don't get as much as we need. So how does this impact communities? When we see a lot of this gray infrastructure, you're going to see a lot of runoff. And these are built streams. These are not natural streams. These were built streams to carry the runoff. Okay, the runoff from this parking lot is going directly into that stream. So if somebody's car has an oil leak and it sits there on that parking lot and there comes a heavy rain, all that goes into this man-made creek, and then it will go on out into the rivers and streams around us. So,
Carla, this is Benita.
yes.
Sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
What about parking lots or driveways that are pervious?
Okay. Yes, we were going to talk about that here in a minute.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yes, these are impervious, and then we have pervious pavers and things like that. So for homeowners, you can look at ponding. Okay, you may live in an area where you've never had a problem in your life. Then they build a subdivision somewhere around you, and all of a sudden you've got all this water in your yard somewhere. And it's going to pool, it's going to pond, and start causing problems. And another thing is that tree's mulched too deeply. Okay, so we don't want to pile a lot of stuff around our tree roots and do plantings under them, because that affects the water that it can uptake, puts it in competition. So, but our trees, we're going to want to improve the quality of the land, improve the value, improve the well-being of people in the community. And this is where I needed my notes. Okay. This is a tool that we use a lot in agriculture, and even for my homeowner audience. If somebody wants to know what their soil characteristics are, you can pull this up. It's the USDA Web Soil Survey. I think I may have mentioned that in our soil classes. And so you can make a map of your property and look at it a little closer and see what the drainage is supposed to be like, whether it's prime farmland or not, or if you have pockets of good soil and pockets of not so good soil. And that helps you make your plan for your landscape, or if you're doing a farm, it definitely helps you pick those places to plant certain things. Okay. So it's the USDA Web Soil Survey. So, oops. I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay. So initially, this is what you're looking at. Okay. And then next thing you know, this is what it looks like all around you. You think your one little house is going to be impacted? Yes, it's definitely going to be impacted from all this construction and the moving of soil that just changes the natural flow, removes the trees, and they go back and they plant little trees. But this could be Clarksville. So,
it is in some areas.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. This would be kind of a riparian buffer. Maybe this is this is where I was expecting my notes to be in here. But I can't see my notes. So, okay, this could either be a natural stream, or it could be one that was created from erosion, changing that natural channel of water flow. And so the homeowners here are trying to protect that area and just keep the grass growing right up to the edge. But that would kind of be like a rain garden. I mean, your water is filtering down through the grass, through the trees, into this into the ditch or the small stream, and that helps clean it some. And then these trees will absorb some of that water as it flows through.
Is that enough, or would it be helpful to maybe have some shrubs along the?
It probably would. I would probably say more plant material is needed, especially on this side, because you can see right along in.
There was a little bit of erosion.
Yeah, there's a little erosion there. You can see it. Sorry about that. Okay, here's another one. This would be a riparian planting, or riparian. you're fixing the creek banks, basically. We've done these at Rotary Park, and we've also put in some riparian plantings at Billy Dunlop Park. And the trick is, on some of these, what you can do is you can get like willow trees. They seem to work the best. You can use birch and sycamore, but they don't seem to take as well. But you take cuttings, and so you're just taking a small stick, and you're literally hammering it into the bank. Like, see where her hand is right there? They're just poking those sticks, or they might take a little hammer or a mallet or something and just take them, put them right in there. And if they take and they'll start to root, then the roots grow that way and the tree grows up this way, and it stabilizes that creek bank. And so it still remains looking natural. Now you could also come in and put big rock, the riprap, on there. But is that as pretty? Nah. And then you get weeds growing up in the riprap, and what do they want to do first thing? Spray the weeds. So you don't want to spray a herbicide right next to a stream, because again, we're getting pollution. So, but this is Mhm.
Right. What about your trees?
You have to plant a lot more than you expect to survive. So that's why we would like take the willow, cut them into small little sticks, and you just take them all down. I'm trying to get in as many as possible. And then there would also be, I would think, a team that would be planting up on that ridge right there, and especially keeping some grasses and some things, getting those established there. And then farmland. This this creek you can see is eroding out into the farmland. I should have took some pictures of Yellow Creek and put them in here, because we've got a huge area just down from where we swim and such, where it's coming into the field where they have row crops growing. And so it's really disappointing. And then I'm not sure what that is. That looks like a water pipe. Irrigation? Like I said, my notes disappeared on me. I did go over this, I promise. But that looks like an irrigation hose. So, the farmers are pulling the water from our creeks to irrigate. So I got to share. So we're all connected. And that watershed, again, is just the area of land where all that water that is under it or drains off of it goes into the same place. And so that's what that is. Now, this has been one of the conventional ways to move it out as fast as possible. And believe me, when you put the concrete down and that water hits that concrete, it gains speed. And so wherever it comes out, there's going to be an eroded area. And I see a lot of that around town where this type of fix was put in. I think I'd rather see the riprap, the rock used, or as someone was saying online, you could do the pervious concrete to where this water was slowed down and it soaked in. Okay. Or you could do a grassed waterway. You could do a rain garden. There's other techniques to slowing that down. I don't think I'm doing that. Okay. And then here, this is probably not the best thing, but again, it's coming off an industrial site. This is okay. This thing is definitely moving on me. Quit it. So you're getting the runoff again from whatever they're producing in this building up here, the parking lot. Of course, we've got trash, if you go up and down the river, we always take trash bags with us and come back with more trash than we would ever even make, because other people just pollute the land. And then this area here, I think it's just another where this water runoff, it's coming off of here so fast and trying to drain back toward those woodlands that you can see the erosion right there. I could see it, so I looked it. Okay. So it basically all ends up in our streams. And okay. So there's a change in hydrology, the result of development. And then when we get these the larger storms, you're going to have heavier rains, you're going to have more runoff, you're going to have less infiltration because the soil is compacted. And so pre-development, post-development, these things if you don't put, I say this be politically correct, if you're not smart about the growth, you're going to have a lot of runoff and stormwater problems. And of course, like I said, the increased heat island and things like that from removal of trees. So they call it urban stream syndrome. Like these streams were created because of water runoff. They spend a lot of time doing riparian plantings, just trying to replace these areas. But all of that is going off in here. That's the way the water is going. Mm-mm.
Oil that's coming out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So flashy hydrology. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Altered channel morphology. It changes the shape. Elevated pollutant concentrations. So reduced biodiversity. We've just got grass over here. So you could go in and do a riparian planting and put in those shrubs and grasses and trees that we talked about. That could help solve that problem, because this is going to continue to erode, and you've got a busy street right there. Let's see. Increased tolerant species. Okay, from the home to the landscape to the creek. Okay, we have trees. Okay. Normal way to handle runoff is your downspout. A lot of times we'll go underwater, okay, or underground, and it goes to the storm drain, and then it goes out to the creek, and then that creek goes out to the river. Your sewer is going to go to the water treatment plant. In Clarksville, within the city of Clarksville, this is combined. Everything goes to the water treatment plant. All our runoff, if you go downtown, you can really smell it, after rain. Sometimes doesn't even have to rain, but it's an old system, but how do you change it? And now that we're doing all this building, what is our capacity to handle all that water? Where's it going to go? So, but we can take control of our own by making some just common, changes. So if you think about it, your water from your downspout, you could put a rain barrel there, okay, and maybe use that to water your garden with. You might do a French drain, which has gravel at the base, and it's underground. You're not seeing it, but that gravel makes that water again slow down and soak in, and so it infiltrates into the ground rather than just running off and running right down to the storm drain. Because then you see the path it's taking. Okay, it's grabbing some soil from that planting bed right there. It's going here to the driveway, then through the trash cans, whatever that was that they spilt over there. All of that. It's going into the storm drain, ends up in the water treatment plant, and the water treatment plant does, it gets rid of E. coli and things like that, but it does not get rid of herbicides, pesticides, and oils and things like that. So. Do they? Okay. They may have changed it in neighborhoods, but I know, within the city, it's all combined.
I want to ask how many people know where the source of water in our stream comes in.
I don't know. Was that a question for me or you? In general?
A lot of the
Rain?
creeks,
Springs, yeah, springs. So.
water. So if it doesn't rain, you still have water in your creek. So the underground water reservoir is very important as well.
Right. So that's one of the problems that we're seeing, though, is that groundwater is not getting rehydrated, I guess you would say. So yeah. Okay, I'm not going to go into this MF4 stuff. That is basically for the stormwater folks. We need to be doing more of this. So looking at Tennessee Smart Yards, they have a foundational 9 principles. Of course, one is right plant, right place, water efficiently, fertilize appropriately, manage your soils and your mulch, provide for wildlife, manage yard pests, reduce, reuse, and recycle, reduce stormwater runoff and pollutants, and protect that water's edge. So they have a yardstick. So to be certified as a Tennessee Smart Yard, you earn inches on the yardstick. Basically, once you've done all these things, you get a nice little sign, kind of like this. So sustainable. What do you call it again? Healthy yards. Yeah, same like the healthy yards. You do certain things. So first, you're going to look at what's your landscape objectives. What does your family want? Okay, you want something that's just pretty, nice lawn to look at, or do you want a lot of trees and shrubs, more nature area? Okay, so but if you can reduce that mowing area and plant more trees that are going to soak up more water, provide more oxygen to us and other benefits, that's going to be better. So if you can reduce turf areas, you would earn 1 inch on the yardstick. Assess your yard conditions. Look at the light availability, your soil characteristics, topography, drainage problems or patterns, things like that, and incorporate that into a sketch. And we'll go over that a little bit more detail when we have our landscape design, but this is your site assessment. Basically, if you could do a printout of your property, like I said, from the USDA the Web Soil Survey or the county assessor's office, you can get it off Google Maps. And you can start making your own little bubble maps to create your landscape design. I like taking tracing paper, and just kind of identify those areas. So you're assessing all your yard conditions, what buildings you have, what type of hardscape and greenscape that you have. So you're going to sketch that out, look at your space use, the aesthetics, the level of maintenance that you want. And one thing that I find we tend to forget about is to group plants according to the site conditions. So you want to put plants together that like the same thing, okay, like full sun plants together. If you have a grouping of plants that that's going to have to be watered more often, you probably keep them in one grouping and away from your plants that need less water. So think about that when you're building up your landscape, is the plants that you choose. And plant them and group them according to the site conditions and what the plant requires. So avoid planting invasive exotic plants and incorporate native plants as much as possible. Preserve the existing vegetation if it's in good shape, especially trees. During land disturbance activities, there are guidelines that can be followed to save trees on a property that is being built. If you're having your own home built, you really have to work with the developer to make sure and mark off these areas. If you're looking at a large tree and you're looking at, maybe it's a 12-inch round diameter tree. Okay, you have to come out 18 inches around the whole tree, the circumference, 18 inches for every 1 inch of diameter of that tree. So 12 to 18 inches per 1 inch of diameter. So you're talking out to the drip line and beyond. So most developers think, oh, that's taking up space. That's going to be where the sidewalks go or something like that. And so those spaces do not get protected. And you get this little area around the base of the tree is protected and the rest of the root system is removed. And they'll clean up, take it off and put it back, move it and all that stuff, compact it. So that's land disturbance practices that developers will do.
You mentioned, and we're guilty of this, but can you imagine if there was a requirement that every new house
Yeah.
that could be there?
Yeah. There are, we have a landscape ordinance. And so new subdivisions and things like that, they are required to plant trees and to also replace trees that they remove. So, this is another thing we were discussing at the conference I was at, the Urban Forestry Conference, was Nashville has what they call a tree bank. And so sometimes the developers, instead of going back and planting trees, they will donate to the tree bank. And then so that money is used to plant trees where it's needed within the city. So that's something that's kind of, in the back of our minds as we review our ordinances here, what can we do better? So to help change. So, going back to your family's landscape objectives, what's going on around your yard? Okay. One thing, when I used to do a lot of landscape design on the side, and one thing is, I want to know how much time, are you spending in your yard? Okay, how much maintenance do you want to do, or do you just want to sit at your kitchen table and look out and see this, really nice manicured lawn with flowers and trees, and you're going to have somebody else take care of it, basically? Or are you going to be out there working it? Do you want to do the labor? Do you want to do the time? How long do you want to mow? How much do you want to mow every week? So if you don't want to mow a lot, then you're going to plant more trees and shrubs and do these groupings of plants. But if you just like to mow, then you're going to have a big, lawn area. So there are areas where turf is good. You want to play ball and things like that. But if you can reduce those turf areas, add trees, shrubs, things like that, that's going to really work better with the environment and make you a better steward of the environment. So, so we got play areas. We bring in our hummingbirds, and you want to think about your pets, your fencing, your exercise areas. Pets can be hard on a backyard. They usually make a trail. If you got a fenced in yard, they're gonna make their path. Composting, I think, so everybody can do a little composting at least. Have a container under your sink where you're putting, your banana peels, your apple peels, whatever, and just take those out and incorporate them right into your landscape. I think I talked about it. I called it composting on the go. You just take it out there, there's a little trench, put it in there, cover it up. Hopefully the dogs don't come along and dig it up. But this is what you'd want to do after you got a basic picture or a layout of your house. Then you could take, a piece of that tracing paper and put it like an overlay, and then start making these bubbles. Okay, you're going to walk around the house, you're going to have a notebook, or maybe just drawing some scratch pictures, and maybe take it back and clean it up a little bit. But look, okay, you've got this side. Okay, usually they have north. Okay, I will say that's one mistake that's on this landscape design, is I do not see the little north signal. So, but anyway, you got moist soil here. You got some pre-existing landscaping. Maybe you're going to keep that. Maybe it's going to go away. Got some trees here that you need to think about. How close are they to the house? Are there roots growing into the house, or are they planted far enough away that they're going to be okay? This area you can mark off. Okay, that's going to be the play area. It's full sun. How do people want to move throughout this? I mean, where's the front door? Have you ever been to somebody's house and you didn't quite know which door to go to, or it was overgrown, or we always use the back door? Okay, well, didn't know that. After I fought through all these shrubs and stuff to get to the door. All right, so I mean, initially this is just site assessment, okay, and then once you've got these areas noted on your piece of paper, you're going to start reviewing. I want sun-loving plants for this area, but I don't want too much because it's going to be a play area. Might be all grass lined with a few flowers. Kids are going to be stomping in them. Water loving plants you can put in that moist area over here. Just plants. It did not. It did not. That would be another thing that you would note in bubbles. Yeah, you want to know where. That's what you got to know where. That's what I was saying. North is not indicated on this map, and that's one of the first things you do on landscape design is you put your little north signal on there, because then you know where east, west, south is, and that's very important because your southwest side of your house is going to be much hotter. Of course, you're probably going to want to plant trees on that side if you can, and that helps to cool your house, helps cool down your air conditioning unit. Costs you less money. Use those natural resources that you have available. So, okay, moving on. But you're going to compile a plant list. And as I've mentioned before, you can Google UT Hort, just UTHORT.com, and go through our publications. And we've got lists for just about everything. Trees, shrubs, annuals, perennials, gardens, grasses, everything is on there. We don't print out a lot of stuff anymore. When I first came to Extension 25 years ago, we had everything. The publications were printed out and mailed to us, and we had like nice little stacks of them everywhere to give people. Well, now I get online and I either print out a copy if somebody comes into the office, or I'll get their email address and I'll send them the links that they need. So that's something else that's changed, technology. But you may have your favorite plants, okay? You go on these garden tours and you go to garden shows and you find all these plants that you like. But you've got to make sure that you have the right place to put them in your landscape for them to flourish and grow and establish successfully. So look at their environmental requirements. What does that plant require? Full sun, shade, part shade. Does it like acidic soil? Does it like an alkaline soil? Will it live in a wet soil, or will it live in a very dry soil? So you're making all these decisions kind of ahead of time. And I always tell people, it's kind of like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, okay? So if you've got a new landscape, you've got an open palette, okay? You're a blank palette, and you're going to start filling in those spaces as you go. Don't try to do it all in 1 year, because you're not going to be successful. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's just, well, even if you hire somebody and your soil's not correct, and you have a landscape contractor that doesn't know how to plant, then, I guess another thing I picked up from the conference was, I think that start with your end product and work backwards. What do you want to achieve? And then work backwards from there on establishing it one step at a time, one step at a time. So, yeah. But you want to make sure, the plants should be easy to obtain. We have tons of nurseries in Tennessee. And then your plant characteristics. What colors do you want in your landscape? Okay. Do you want all native plants, or are you willing to kind of lean towards some non-native species? Because we're pretty much all non-native anymore. We're a hodgepodge of DNA, and so are plants. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I'm not an all native freak, but I'm not it's not like I won't plant a non-native as long as it's not invasive. So preserving the existing high quality vegetation. This is something that we need to work on in Clarksville. And like I said, as homeowners, especially if you're building a new home and you're in that process from beginning to end, you are a part of that. And it's up to you to stay on that developer, your contractor, to protect those trees or protect those things that you want left and not disturbed. So you can't just tell them once and then walk away. You've got to be on site. You've got to see what they're doing. They get aggravated because you stand over them. That's why I hated to lose my farm so bad, because that's what we did. And so it was in really, really good shape. Look at removing the invasive exotic plants, and here's just a few. Your bush honeysuckle. These are going to be the common invasive ones, the ones that you want to avoid or remove. Japanese honeysuckle, and then we have Asian bittersweet vine, and I think I've seen that. They've got little spines on them. Japanese stilt grass. I've had 3 calls about that this week, and it's only Tuesday. So maybe I got one last week. But Japanese stilt grass is a very invasive grass in our forest. Very hard to control. It's going to seed about right now. You can control it, through mowing or bush hogging fields and such. You do not want it to go to seed, because those seeds will remain viable in the soil for 3 or more years. So they may just lay there dormant, and the first time that soil gets disturbed, boop, up they go. They get a little sunlight, they get a little bit of water, and they're starting to take over the forest floor. It's really what happens. So Japanese stilt grass is something to look out for. Catch it while it's young. If goats will eat that, I would say they probably would. The person I was talking to today had cattle, and he said that they would eat it sometimes when the pasture, like in the middle of summer, when the pasture started kind of dying back during the drought, that they would eat it. So I don't think that it's poisonous to cattle or anything. So, or goats. Yeah, goats are kind of picky. I mean, some of them are. These new goats, some of the newer goats, they want to be hand fed, it seems like. But all right, common privet. One thing I found is if you have a lot of privet, if you can just keep the flowers cut off and don't let them go to seed, just prune them back. If you can't, if you don't have the time, to go in and do slash and spray, which is the recommendation on getting rid of them completely. You would slash them and then spray with a little bit of herbicide. You don't want to do that. Just try to keep the seeds, keep them from developing seeds, because the birds eat the seeds and they take them out and they poop in the woods, and then the privets grow in the woods. Same, with the Bradford pear, it goes back to calorie pear. So we've got common privet, we've got Chinese privet, tree of heaven. That was the one I was trying to think of a while ago. Tree of heaven, Ailanthus, really causing a problem. And now that we've got this spotted lanternfly in Tennessee, this is its main host. And so if you need to learn to identify this tree, write it down, look it up, Google it, and get to know it. Okay. Because we want to get rid of it. And so when you're talking to people, you can help them identify these things in their landscapes, and also be looking for that spotted lanternfly. And let's see, we did it. I need to get some pictures. I have been posting, I sent out some emails on it. But the spotted lanternfly is a very pretty moth, basically. There's a lot of mimics, and we've had some pictures sent in already. And they were not spotted lanternfly, at least for Montgomery County, but they found a bad infestation about 2 weeks ago in Davidson County. And the foresters up there were like, I can't believe that this has been here this long, and they're established. They're there. So they were basically just squishing the egg masses and squishing the bugs as they seen them. It's going to be a spray thing, basically. You have to figure out what is recommended to spray them, because we've never had them here before. So your pesticides aren't going to be labeled for use for it. So mimosa is also listed on the invasive exotic list. I guess I thought it was a native myself. They've been around forever. Just can be just overgrowth, basically invades our native forest. What's that? Yeah, they spread and they pop up everywhere. But yeah, they're not. No, they're not near as bad as that. And the hummingbirds and the bees love the mimosa trees. And you can also make, there's supposed to be a healthy tincture that you can make from the blooms, but I would have to do a little research on that one too.
It's champagne.
Okay, a mimosa. Yes, you got it. You got it. Good one.
Is it that much today that?
Yeah. The other is supposed to be more tame. It's sterile. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. 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 It's just a management issue that these things, they do grow prolifically. And so you're constantly, having to cut them back and trim them back, and they come back. But so it should be. I don't think that we've covered all of them here, but multiflora rose is one that we don't recommend that you plant either. Multiflora rose is actually used as rootstock for a lot of your roses still, though. And so if the like we've got a grafted rose, that top part dies, then that multiflora rose comes up. Before you know it, you've got this huge invasive shrub. So just kind of watch for those things too. That's strange. I don't know. Oh no. Take it, mix you up a little bit of Roundup, and take a paintbrush, like one of those spongy paintbrushes, and paint the multiflora rose stem itself. Make sure you got some green leaves on there, and just paint it, and give it 7 to 14 days, and see if anything's alive. If it looks like it's putting up new roots, hit it again. Just dab it on there. So you're just killing that plant.
Yeah.
And remember, I think we talked about this, is glyphosate does not have any activity in the soil. It has to have a chlorophyll molecule to attach to, and it moves through the plant. And so it does not leave a residual in the soil. So yeah, we went on this garden tour yesterday, and I kind of had an aha moment. The lady was using Epsom salts, vinegar, and Dawn. And I was like, no, 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 because they say that that kills more microorganisms in the soil than Roundup product does, or glyphosate. So I'd be hesitant to do that. Okay, so some of the plants that we do want to plant, black-eyed Susans, purple coneflower, yarrow, Joe Pye weed. I love to see these blooming out in the fields. The farmers call them weeds and they want to kill them, but they are so pretty with their pink little blooms. Butterfly weed, goldenrod. And goldenrod always gets blamed for allergies. It's not the goldenrod, it's yeah, yep, the other one. So oak leaf hydrangea is a good shrub choice. Cinnamon clethra. The clethra has a nice little, it's kind of a snaky looking little bloom on it. Hearts of buston. You can see those naturally in the woods. The beautyberry, and then your sweet shrub. But you can find these growing in your native landscapes, but you can purchase them too. We have some native plant nurseries, and then you have to look, and sometimes you have to search for these over different cultivars. Okay, so inching towards your Tennessee Smart Yard, managing your soils and mulch. Instead of using your weed barrier fabric, you're going to be using organic pine straw, pine bark, leaves, hardwood mulch. About a 2 to 3 inch layer is all you need. You don't need to pile it 10 inches thick, okay? Whether it's around a tree or in a landscape, it's going to impede water from getting through. And once that stuff dries out, it will definitely, the water would just literally bounce off the top of it and it'll go off into the grass, but may not get down to your plants like you want it to. Protect all your soil surfaces by planting vegetation, use those cover crops, keep that soil covered at all times. All right, so here's kind of the way our soil, our soil looks. We've got our pieces of soil, the sand, the silt, and you've got clay down here, some smaller particles. You have clay and organic matter complex. And then you've got some fungal hyphae. These are the mycorrhiza that are in the soil. You hear about mycorrhiza a lot in the forest because it will be on the trees, tree roots, and that helps them to absorb the nutrients in the water. And it also, that mycorrhiza grows from tree to tree because their roots are intertwined. And so they all benefit from that mycorrhizal activity in the soil. And so one tree will actually help out another tree. Like if this tree over here is getting sick and they're connected through the root zone, this tree will put some energy through and it'll kind of work its way through the mycorrhiza into the tree that's sick and hopefully help it repair itself. So, but we have airspace, we have water, we have our soil aggregates. You also have good and bad bacteria. We always have bacteria and fungi in the soil. There can be good, there can be bad. When we talk about plant diseases, which is our last class, you're going to hear him talk about some of the bad ones that can be in the soil. That they're always there. It just takes a susceptible plant, that's their host, and it takes the right weather conditions and what else did I say? The fungal organism in the soil, fungal or bacteria organisms. Oh, here's a, this is the USDA Web Soil Survey. So this is your online information. Once you've made a rectangle of your little plot of land, I mean, you can get down and do, like, this is your house, you could get it down that small and look at what your soil is in that area. So it comes up with a soil map. And so I can't read that up there. I can't read it on here either. But I'm just going to assume that this is CA, which is a Callaway silt loam. And your slope is about 0 to 2% slopes. Then you have the Granada silt loam, 5 to 8% slopes. Waverly silt loam. Okay, you'll get all this, but then you'll get a description too. And you'll read that. That gives you the information on, well, it gives the air temperature for this area. Okay, and this would not be prime farmland. It's going to tell you that. And kind of a hilly area, you'll know what the land area is. Basically, it's silt loam down to about 60 inches, so that wouldn't be too bad of a soil. Your slopes are 5 to 8, so they're going to be, and then it says more than 80 inches to any restrictive features. So that just means like there's not a hard pan for a long ways down. Okay, you're still got a subsoil and you've got those layers, but it's not going to be restrictive. So that's
Is or was your soil type?
yeah, true, was or is. Mhm. It is supposed to be updated, but I guess they're going by the parent soil. And they will pull soil samples to a certain depth and analyze that in a lab and tell you what type of parent soil you've got and such like that. But like I said, new subdivisions, most of that is removed and it's gone. So yeah, if it's disturbed land, it's going to be a little bit different. Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I guess if you had a lot of trees, you might end up with a lot of phosphate on there. You would probably just want to have a soil test done, maybe a year after the fire, after everything starts kind of breaking down. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Other than destroying whatever's there.
Yeah. Yes. Mhm. And a lot of your pines, they need heat or they need that fire to be able for their seeds to germinate. The native, the wildfires in California, and now they're a problem because people live out there. Didn't used to be such a problem until humans, took over the land. So
For the big California, the largest California fire,
mhm.
all the green areas had a super bloom,
Mhm.
like real pretty flowers,
bet.
but in like one of the hill areas where the house was burnt down, they actually removed all of that because they had asbestos in some of those houses, or it wasn't known.
Oh,
So
gosh.
they had to create a new dump site in that
Oh.
county, a hazardous dump site
Okay.
because of the asbestos in the housing tax. So we kind of
wow.
got in
Okay.
on the area vote.
Okay. Okay. Good information. So, okay. So just compaction causes, we know, heavy equipment, such like that, driving your cars over your lawn, just having the kids playing, things like that is going to cause compaction of the soil. There's things that we can do. We can aerate. We can add organic matter every year to kind of help break down that clay, increase that soil structure. But try not to let people park right on your front lawn, especially under the trees, or store equipment. Things like that. Pile the firewood up next to the living tree, and then they kill that tree and things. So. But water comes down and it's strong. I mean, never underestimate the strength of water. And the impact of raindrops on exposed soil, 1 millimeter raindrop is about 9 miles an hour hit the soil. So 5 millimeter raindrop, 20 miles per hour. You ever been out on a boat in the rain? It's not fun. It's just like spears going at you. So it kind of gives you an idea of what that's like. And we know the consequences of compaction. Okay, we get the ponding in our yards. That area is not draining well anymore. So we put in a big culvert. Okay, and that causes another erosion problem on down the road. We've maybe taken care of the ponding here, but then we've moved the water into another space where it really didn't have a good place to go. And so then you've got erosion, you've got sediment and things like that. And so when you get into these conditions, you get a soil that crusts over really easily. And so it's going to be hard for a seed to germinate and sprout and come through that. It's like working your soil when it's too wet. You get that hard crust over there, and then your little seedlings have to work really hard to get up and out of the soil. You have those tightly packed crumbs. You have large blocks with few cracks. So then we go back to our infiltration. Your water's not going down far enough to keep those roots on the plants healthy. And so then you end up with subsoil compaction. And with new developments, this whole part right here is what's being taken away. And then that's all compacted and they bring something different back and spread it out over your lawn. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot a step. You put all your debris, you bury that, then you bring back soil from another area and then you put it on there. So here's a different way to do an infiltration test. I think we talked about this once before, but this, it says cut out the bottom of a coffee can, mark it off in half-inch increments to the top 3 inches of the can, drive that coffee can into the ground with the top 3 inches remaining above the surface, fill the can with water and allow it to drain. And then take note of the amount of time it takes for water to drain out of that area. So you want to repeat it 3 times so that you do get the water or the soil kind of wet. So so the infiltration rate is, it's not a dramatic change. So now infiltration of less than ½ inch per hour indicates signs of compaction. So just another way to test your soil. Let me see. So we've talked about this. With less organic matter, your compaction is going to be a problem. You don't want to add sand to our clay soils or you get bricks. So we don't want to do that. Organic matter is also going to help reduce that rainwater infiltration. Am I reading it right? No. And you're going to have limited contaminant breakdown due to the limited microbial activity. So by adding the organic matter, you're going to bring that soil back to life. All right, the many benefits of mulch. Okay, it's going to reduce soil loss, reduces your weeds, moderates soil temperature, prevents soil splashing. Why is that important? Bacteria, fungi, diseases. So when if you have just bare soil and it rains or you water, and especially on tomatoes and peppers and things like that, you spread your diseases. It's adding to the problem. So mulch is going to break down. It's going to improve that soil structure, helps to protect your trees and shrubs, reduces soil compaction, reduces the soil crusting, adds beauty to the landscape, increases the root system, and reduces erosion. So plant soil raindrop interactions. So you want to maintain that herbaceous cover or mulch over the soil to protect it. In sun, a healthy turf. If you don't have a well-seeded lawn, or the types of turf is also important because you have clumping grasses and then you have fescue, which, well, there are clumping fescues, but like the turf type fescue, every seed you put out puts up 1 blade of grass. Okay, Kentucky 31 is going to put up a clump of grass. And so if you have all Kentucky 31, then you have a clumpy yard and you're going to have areas in between where you'll have erosion and there'll be a bare spot. And that's just an opportunity for a weed to take hold. So that's why Kentucky 31 is not the best turf grass. So we want something different. But if you're looking at your landscape, okay, if you're looking at riparian planting, look how deep those prairie grasses grow. Now that's going to hold that bank down. It's going to reduce that erosion. I think they're pretty used in the landscape design. Anyway, in the partial shade, you can plant a non-invasive ground cover, and deep shade, consider shade-loving plants or just mulch. Okay, so some more tips on inching your way to a Tennessee Smart Yard. So create and maintain that compost pile. Does anybody have any questions about composting? Yes.
So I started the compost pile in a very hard of fashion.
Okay.
I mean, I started
on the go.
it's an just a little fence around it, so don't eat it. Anyway, it's attracted quite, I would say now that we've probably improved it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In a very lucky way, yesterday we observed a red shoulder hawk come down into the yard, and she is just hanging out on the sunset and hanging out the fence.
Oh, as long as you don't have chickens, you're okay.
Yesterday, I like 40 overhead.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, yeah, is there a way, so I don't have a container?
Yeah.
Is there a safe way to compost the whole use habitat for.
Well, one thing is you've got to look at what you're putting into your compost pile.
Well, it's fruit, it's just vegetables.
Vegetables and scrap like that. Okay. Um,
Paper, and, you know, it's.
Okay, you may need to add more browns, which is your carbons, and less vegetables.
Day.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say turning it often, make sure that it's not wet, because if it's giving off a smell, it's gonna attract rodents and other insects. Yeah. Yeah. Well, as the leaves start to fall, a lot of people, will offer up their leaves, and bags of leaves and things like that. So rather than letting them send those to the landfill, maybe take them to your property and put those into your compost pile. But it probably would help to maybe put a fence around it or stuff. But when you go fencing, the only thing that is difficult is, when you've got to turn it. And so when you have a container or you have a fence around it, then how do you get in there to turn it really well? You're up on a ladder with a pitchfork trying to dig down, and as it gets deeper and deeper. So it can be complicated. I think one of the best ones I've seen is the barrels that you roll. But sometimes you have to take your pitchfork and get in there and mix that up because they will pod together. They'll get wet, and you'll hear a thump, thump, thump. And you open it up, and instead of it all breaking down, it's like in one big bunch. So you got to kind of go in there and work it up and see. So it's a process. Yeah, it is. It is. That's why I like doing it on the go. Unless, years ago we had it where we could go out to Bi-County, the landfill, and you could get as much mulch as you wanted in your, pickup truck load for $10. And I used to do that every year, and that was my compost pile that I was digging off the bottom and turning and adding my stuff, kind of. So you do get, where you have fresh compost, and you have the aged, and then you have, well, fresh would be your new. So sometimes you may have to have 3 different areas, okay, and break it down a little bit more, and then use it as quickly as possible. Once it starts breaking down and it is usable, go ahead and put it into your garden beds.
And that was another issue, because if I have one, it's
Mhm.
broken down when I'm constantly adding to it.
Yeah. Yeah, right, right. You've got to kind of maybe start 2 compost piles, and yeah, and just turning and heat is going to be the key to it composting and breaking down. So you can add worms to it. I've had people add nitrogen. You can put blood meal in it, but then again, blood meal is going to attract animals. They smell that, but that's a different source of nitrogen there to help break it down a little faster.
The hog is happy, but mice can't stay, and I'm worried that it's
Oh
a
no!
problem, it's poison them.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah. Okay, so on your compost pile, you want to make sure that you have grass clippings, leaves, prune plant material, kitchen scraps, but no meat or dairy. Use your landscape waste, your fallen leaves, pine needles, things like that. Recycle your grass clippings by leaving them on the lawn. Now, there comes a time when you do need to remove those, dethatch, because you get a layer of thatch in your lawn, and that increases your disease problems and kind of keeps it wet down in there. And so you do need to dethatch your lawn or aerate. Usually twice a year is sufficient, but for most of the time, just let those grass clippings lay, and they will add nutrients back to the lawn. They're adding organic matter back to the lawn. Let's see, incorporate salvage materials into landscaping. Okay, newspapers in gardens to suppress weed growth. I've done this for years. Newspaper and cardboard, and put that down at the beginning of the season or once I've got everything planted. Do that all in between the rows, and then I'll either mulch with brown mulch or just hay or straw, whatever I've got available. If I have old hay bales, I will use that because it's got a little nutrients left in it. Again, be careful about where you're getting your hay and your manure and things like that. If you can, talk to the farmer. You don't want to get hay and manure from cows that have eaten off a field that's been sprayed with Grazon or other chemicals that have those long residuals. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like this one guy went to, he put Grazon all over his landscape. So, why compost? We know the reasons. It's going to replenish your topsoil, 500 to 1,000 years to form 1-inch soil. That's kind of, I don't know, that's just hard to believe. So I know with using the cover crops as a manure crop, within 5 years, I probably had a good inch of soil that developed. So I guess there's different ways of composting versus, live manure crops that you're tilling into the soil that can make your soil structure, build that up a little bit quicker. So you're enriching the topsoil, improving the soil's water holding capacity, the aeration. Leave the leaves. If you have forested areas, leave the leaves. That's Mother Nature's mulch. Okay, most people don't want it, in their front yard. You want your front yard to look all nice and pristine and pretty. But if you have areas where you can just leave the leaves to naturally break down, that's going to be good. Your forested soil is going to be some of the healthiest soil. It's full of those microorganisms, mycorrhizae, all that good stuff. Recycle your grass clippings, again, with caution. If you've been treating your lawn with a herbicide, you don't want to put it in your compost pile. Okay. Or if you're getting clippings from your neighbor, they've been using herbicides, don't put it in your compost pile. The herbicides do not compost out, they don't break down. Okay. So, but if you're not using the herbicides and such, the clippings, you can return to the ground and it can reduce the nitrogen that you need to add to your soil. So, all right, watering efficiently, use a rain gauge to monitor plant needs. Our Tennessee weather, you definitely need to do that. Maybe put a couple out within your landscape, depending on how big of a property you have. Because I can literally, I have watched it rain across the street and not gotten a bit of rain on my property. It gets to be that close. So neighbor may have got 2 inches and you got a half an inch over here on your side. So make sure that you know how much water you're getting on your property. You can't just go by what the weatherman says, because it's not, it's usually not, I'm trying to think of the right word, site specific. Yeah. Okay. So rain barrels can catch that rooftop runoff, or if you've got sheds, garages, and you've got a lot of gardens, rain barrels are excellent. See, adjust your sprinkler heads, make sure that they're not watering the pavement or watering graveled areas, and you need to calibrate those. So if you're having an irrigation system put in, find somebody that's got knowledge of it and knows how to do the pressure, the output of water, how much water is being put out onto those plants, how long is it running before the water starts running off. It's like I was saying at Fall Creek Falls, it was just running constantly and you could see the runoff. That's just wasteful. I mean, you could run it for 15 minutes, leave it off 15 minutes. Sometimes you just have to go out and kind of dig and make sure that your soil is being wetted down to 6 inches. And you're doing that about once a week, maybe twice a week during the hottest part of summer. So we're just trying to save on water here. Mow your grass a little high. I hate to see people mowing dust. But when you mow your grass high, you're creating that deeper root system and reducing your water needs. And so each of those, as you can see, I forgot to say the value. So if you incorporate rain barrels, you're going to add two inches to your yardstick, things like that. So, about 3 to 4 inches. Mm-hmm. Yep, because remember, you want that good thick cover. So you don't have weeds popping through the bare areas. Now, again, this is going back to knowing your plants and what they like. So maintain your soil pH in the recommended range for the plants you have. Fertilizer is recommended. Invest in that soil test. I can't emphasize that enough. You may be able to get a pH meter at the box store or whatever, and it's going to tell you what your pH is, but it's not going to tell you what your plant needs. Okay, so when you go through a soil lab, they're going to tell you, specific for that crop, how much fertilizer it needs and what the pH. So use low maintenance plans. Okay. Okay. All right. This was about runoff. Okay, because this is an edible product. Okay, we want to fertilize it, keep it healthy. But you can reduce your inputs. If you have a healthy garden, you're not going to be spraying as much fungicide or bactericides, things like that. Hopefully, you're not using herbicides in your vegetable garden. You'll be using hand removal, the mulches, things like that. If you over fertilize if you want this perfect little lawn here, and that's not a bad size to have a little bit of lawn, but to keep it looking like that, can you imagine the inputs that go into that? There's no clover, there's no weeds, it's nice and green, very manicured. It's going to cost a lot of time and money to have that. So, do we want to put our inputs into this and have nitrogen runoff and then have algae blooms in our creeks and rivers? Or do we want to change our perspective a little bit about what we can tolerate as a lawn? Okay. Can you handle a couple dandelions coming up in your lawn? Can you handle a little bit of Bermuda grass, crabgrass being in there, or do you want to spray? So it's kind of up to you and your aesthetic value of what you're seeing. Okay. And many homeowners, that's what they want. Okay. They want that nice, lush green lawn. And that's perfectly fine. But just know that's going to have more inputs. You're going to have a lot more pesticides and things like that to keep it looking like that. Okay, so identifying and managing pests. Now we've had the insect class, and we will have plant pathology on the last night. So you will learn as you go to identify and manage the pests. There's going to be specific pests for specific plants. Okay, like we talk about euonymus scale. Okay, that's just a plant that we probably don't want to recommend because it's either going to have scale, going to have mites, going to have powdery mildew. So euonymus is not one of the best plants, and you don't want to overplant it. Now that's another thing too, is you might have one or two euonymus mixed in with some different types of shrubs. Maybe work in some junipers or some hollies, into your landscape. Because once you get a disease or insect on one, it's going to get on all the others. So diversity. Use mechanical cultural approaches to pest control. Like I said, pruning, hand removal of the weeds, spraying off the insects with a good hard spray of water, just keeping those plants healthy and getting out in your landscape and looking at the plants. Walk through your landscape at least every couple of days and see what's going on. Check the garden. Learn and use beneficial insects to control pests, and use your pesticides wisely. Only spot treat the affected areas. And one thing I want to say about bringing in beneficial insects, make sure that they have something to feed on. Because if you bring in a bunch of ladybugs and you don't have any aphids on your plants, that $100 worth of ladybugs are going to go down the road to your neighbor's house that has aphids, and they're going to be all over the place down there, or things like that. So, too, yeah. Once they use up their food source, you're helping somebody else out. But just remember those things. But okay, pesticides. You can use environmentally friendly horticulture oils, BT, the Bacillus thuringiensis. And insecticidal soaps. And when I'm talking to people, they call in. These are the three things that I'm going to recommend most often, rather than a synthetic pesticide, just because these are easier on the environment. And they're also easier on the person that's applying it too. So.
Those big.
The deer?
I mean,
Yeah. It's, yep, it's loss of habitat. Yeah, it's just simply loss of habitat because we're taking down the trees and we're putting up houses. And, if we could save some green spaces in between subdivision, leave some trees and protect them, leave their homes alone. I know. Well, I do too. I mean, well, I live out in the middle of nowhere. There's deer everywhere. So, hmm yeah. We do have some list of deer resistant plants. Some of your chrysanthemum. Yeah. What may be deer resistant for one person is not for the other. Different strain of deer or something. I don't know. Yes. Yeah. 30-30. So, but anyway, it's just, and there's also that spray, the deer repellent spray. You can put that out on your bushes and plants, but using a lot of herbs that smell, have different textures. You can use the electric fences. Also, you have used just fishing line, but you got to be careful to watch out for the fishing line, or you catch yourself in the fishing line, like around the garden. Put the fishing line because the deer will come up on it and they're very sensitive. So like their nose just barely touches it, it will frighten them. And so you take the fishing line and you put it around your garden, and then you can also put bags on there that wave and things like that. If you've got an electric fence, they say to put a little bit of peanut butter on there and they'll come up and they'll get zapped. So
How they sense their client.
yes, right, right. And they'll get used to it though, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
You're out of my.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep, that's true. Okay. All right. Reducing stormwater runoff and its pollutants. I think we've kind of touched on this. Disconnect those downspouts and either put them into rain barrels or direct them out onto the lawn or maybe into a drainage channel like a French drain or other impervious surfaces. And okay, we said build a rain garden, permeable surfaces for hardscapes such as driveways. We used to call it a Hollywood driveway. Do you all remember that term? Where it was basically a gravel driveway with green grass up the middle of it. It was called that a Hollywood driveway. But instead of putting in concrete, put something like that in. And I know some people think, well, that's kind of hokey. I don't want that in my front yard. But this kind of depends on where you live. If you live in a place where it's an HOA, you're probably not going to get away with that. So I'm probably not going to like that. And then just practice good housekeeping yourself. Sweep up your surfaces, or don't blow your clippings into the street because they go down the storm drain. And they're also a hazard for people that ride motorcycles and ride bicycles. Scoop to poop. If you got to take your little dog for a walk, scoop it to poop. Nobody wants to walk in that. Wash the car on your lawn instead of your driveway, just to keep it off where it will soak in rather than running off. Okay. Oops. I thought that had some animation to it. Okay, there's but you can just start taking note of how that stormwater is flowing across your property and then make decisions on how you're going to handle it. Especially if it's, like I said, the new subdivision, you've lived here forever, never had a problem. Well, then a new subdivision goes in around you that changes the landform and everything. And so it can cause erosion or more water to be coming your direction. So it's kind of a matter of just tracking things and doing what you can to change it. So I think we just talked about that.
Can I have a clarification
Oh,
question?
okay.
Rain barrels are legal here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I come from a different county. And
Oh,
it's
okay.
not legal there, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's not potable water. I mean, you don't want to drink it.
Yeah.
And it's not gray water. So they don't consider that gray water. Gray water would be like what comes, from your sink or your washing machine, the shower or things like that. Some people, you can have a gray water system in a septic system. So you can use your gray water to water your plants, but it's not drinkable. The same with the rain barrel. So I guess I don't know why they'd be illegal. What county you in?
It was,
Stuart?
I lived in. Homestead
Really?
for, like, at least as far as I remember, it was illegal to actually have
Wow. Wonder where that is. Because they're a pretty eco-friendly town now.
yeah.
Now, it may have been years ago. So it's interesting. Okay. All right. Now build your rain gardens. Again, we have some good guides online, and I'm also gonna just take some of these individual publications and go ahead and put them up on the Google Drive so you can find them easily. But if you have a depression where you have a lot of ponding in your yard, just create a little rain garden. And it doesn't have to be, real prim and proper. It can be a little wild. Use your grasses, your some ground covers, just a diverse mix of plants that don't mind having their feet wet, but will be deeply rooted and hold that soil in place and take that water up. Because that little depression area, water's going to flow into it. Hopefully it's going to sit there for just a little while, and it's going to slow down and it's going to infiltrate down through the soil, and then it's going to spread out and go to the other plants in the area. Permeable surfaces. So the pervious concrete, this is something that's very expensive, and that's why you don't see it a lot in cities. Now, Chattanooga was one of the first ones where I seen this used at the edge of parking lots. And it seemed to work really well because they had the pervious concrete around the edges, and then that all went down into a channel where they used it to water their trees. So they were capturing that water within the city and using it on their urban forest trees. So you can use porous paver blocks, like for your driveways, the aggregate porous surfaces, and those Hollywood driveways that I talked about. So anything but just flat concrete or asphalt. Okay, provide for wildlife actions. Hey, most of us want to get rid of wildlife. Some people want to attract it. We had a small garden in town. It was the Brandon Hill Community Garden. And we just kept having trouble with the deer and with these groundhogs. He must have had a tunnel from our shed, which was over here, to where we had a little stage where we did activities with the kids and stuff. He'd go up under there, and he just had to have a huge hole there because it was, And I was out there watering one day, and I felt like somebody was watching me. And I looked over, and sitting on the stage is that groundhog, and he's just the neighbors had been putting food on the stage for him. So he just sat there watching me water. So I'm like, okay, you. Now, I didn't want to bring my gun because that wasn't a good idea in that neighborhood. So, but there was just nothing we could do about it. We talked to the neighbor several times about, putting stuff out for the deer and the groundhog, but they wanted to watch the wildlife. We wanted our garden. So here we were trying to cover everything with fencing but anyway, install plants that will support the habitat needs of desired wildlife. So if you want a certain type of birds or certain types of bushes and trees that you can plant to attract those into your landscape, you can provide a water source, okay, or a pond, a bird bath, or hummingbird feeders, to provide for those. You can encourage the wildlife that we do want, like bats, who will eat a lot of mosquitoes and mosquito larvae. So if you want to encourage wildlife, there are ways to do that through specific houses, like the blue martin houses, bird houses, bird feeders, etc. So again, what kind of wildlife are you wanting to attract, or what do you want to get rid of? Tennessee WatchableWildlife.org has a lot of good resources. And remember, this will be posted online, so you'll have this presentation to go back to. So maybe you do want to attract the downy woodpecker. They can do a lot of damage. Okay. I went on a home visit one time, and a lady couldn't figure out what was going on with her back deck. And that's what it turned out to be. And it was a woodpecker that was just taking out chunks, and he was flinging them. I mean, they were just huge chunks taken all over this deck. And then I've seen trees. Oh, really? I haven't seen them on I've never seen them either. Yeah. I've never seen them at the hummingbird feeders. I'll be darned. Yeah. Yeah. So do you really want to attract a chipmunk? Some people do. They want to protect them. Yeah. Okay. There's one of our American toads. I mean, he may look kind of ugly, but he's beneficial. He or she.
I want to see all that.
Want to see all that? Yeah.
He doesn't like it finding it in the pool, but I
Yeah.
love seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the woodpeckers are there for a reason. Usually there's a boar, a beetle, something in that tree that they're going after. And they just, yeah, like Woody Woodpecker. Right. Right. He does a lot of damage while he's getting in there and providing that natural control. So the chipmunks, I just don't know why you would want to invite them in. They'll come in anyway. Okay, our box turtles, we got to protect those. You've really got to be careful. If you see a turtle in the road, they say don't stop and move it. I mean, you might get run over or hit by another car. But if you do stop and move it, don't turn it around and make it go back the other direction, because it's going home or it's going back to where it laid eggs. So if you move it out of the road, put it in the direction that it was going, because it knows where it's going. It's going to be slow, but it's going to get there. So
Probably feet, so hold it out.
Oh gosh. I never noticed that. I don't guess I picked up a turtle in a long time.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh my gosh. We used to tease the snapping turtles in the pond when I was a kid. We'd get big sticks. I know. I'm lucky to still be alive, or to have my toes. Yeah. So popular pollinators in Tennessee, things that we don't often think of as pollinators, are hummingbirds do a lot of pollinating for us. The bats will pollinate. They move around on some plants at night and help us pollinate. Butterflies, bees, our beetles. There's a lot of good beetles. So every time you see a beetle, it's not a bad beetle. It's not something that's going to be eating your plants. It might be a beneficial beetle. And then our moths. Now, really what we have to worry about with the moth is its other stage, which is caterpillar. Okay, the very hungry caterpillar, because they'll eat everything like crazy. But if you want to see these pretty moths, hanging out on your window or whatever at night or flying around, then you've got to kind of deal with the caterpillar part. And you can plant plants like the milkweed that are specific to specific butterflies and moths to draw them in too. So this million pollinator garden challenge, had you all heard about that? Oops. They ran out of seed. So for the butterfly weed plant, they had so many people requesting the seed packets that they ran out of seed. That's what I've heard. It was through the state, I think. Yeah. It might have been behind it. So yeah, but I've got a secret stash of seeds that you all will have access to. I noticed there's a bunch of butterfly weed there. So 4 basic elements that your wildlife is looking for, just like us. They want food, water, shelter, and space. They want space to raise their young. So, even though a woodpecker, you have a dead tree, that woodpecker may make a home out of it. And if it's a snag or something like that, and it's not where it's going to fall on your house or cause any problems, just leave it be and let nature take its course, because it's home to a lot of different little animals and critters. Your bird baths, it is recommended that you have some kind of little fountain in there to move the water, or rinse them out very often, or you can just bring mosquitoes in. There's also If you have fountains and you don't want to have to empty them out all the time, you can put the BT dunks, Bacillus thuringiensis. They come in little dunks or they come in granules, and they don't harm the birds or anything that's eating them. But you can put that in there, and that kills the mosquito larvae. It's not like spraying for mosquitoes, like they go through the neighborhood still and they'll be spraying like crazy. That's just to get the adults. If they don't take care of the larvae, the young ones, then they're just going to be continually spraying. And when they do a whole neighborhood spray like that, what they're spraying kills everything, beneficial or not. It kills the mosquitoes. It's going to kill everything. So we kind of, it's called BT, capital B, little t. Bacillus, I don't know if I can spell it. Bacillus, BACILLUS. And then thuringiensis. Good luck. Thur, THURINGENIS. Thuringiensis. Something. What's your
Well,
my spelling capabilities or
well, we have a salt,
oh okay.
and I swore the other day I saw a bat that was like coming, like grabbing someone going, and it's so fast, but I'm like, I know that's not a bird,
Mm-hmm.
but is that
The,
we find that stuff time, and it's like, is it just drowning or is it?
oh, I mean, things are going to drown in your pool. I mean, I've got a regular chlorine pool, and that's been a realization over the year. Oh, I want a pool. No, I don't. But anyway, but I don't think the salt water would be killing them. I mean, they may get in there and drown because they can't get back out. I mean, I've found birds, I've found frogs. I mean, I don't know why I've got such an algae problem, but right after a rain, if I don't get out there with the algaecide and scrub the walls of that pool, it'll be green before you know it. So I just use a lot of shock and a lot of algaecides, the two things that I use. But yeah, I find all kinds of things in my pools that you don't want to find. Okay, along the water's edge, again, maintain that mix of native trees and shrubs like we talked about, wildflowers, even mark a no mow or no spray zone. Now, I know the highway department, will come along a lot of times, and especially if it's under a power line, and they will spray everything. Okay, it's kind of like when you're in a TVA power line area. And when I lived out off Blockby Road, I got really mad one year because I had planted red buds on purpose because they would never reach the power line, and they had just started to bloom. And guess what happened? Along came the highway. No, they sprayed them. They sprayed them, and they got talking to. Didn't do me any good. Lost my trees. But okay. So, on what kind of water are you? Now, this is where I need my notes again because I'm not sure. Okay. This kind of looks like the Cumberland, doesn't it? Kind of green. So we can have streams, rivers, lakes, small creeks, wetland areas. Okay. Our wetland areas have to be managed very specifically. If you ever go down to Liberty Park right down here, there's two different wetlands. And when they built the marina, they kind of messed up a little bit. And so that area, a lot of those trees have died out because the wetland actually started drying up. And so the trees were killed when that happened. And so some things had to be rerouted to where there was enough water getting back to that area. They also had to make sure that they were not spraying herbicides. They were spraying Roundup right to the, on the edges of the wetlands around the pond and things like that. You can't do that in a wetland. There has to be other ways of managing it, or just getting used to and getting the public to understand that, hey, it's not that we're lazy and we're not mowing, we're trying to increase the habitat. We're trying to protect that habitat. We're protecting that wet area or wetland area. So a lot of times it's perception and how it's taken. So anyway, protect the water as much as you can along that shoreline. Maintain a buffer, choose natural and native, maximize your diversity. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. This is something that's kind of over my head, but it's not. This is more for landscape architects. The American Society of Landscape Architects, they go LEED certified buildings or landscapes. If they're LEED certified, they're definitely green. Okay, they might have green roofs, they might have rain barrels. They've got like capturing that water, like I said, off the parking lot and reusing it to water the trees and the landscape plants. That would be a LEED certified design. Okay, so but that is just the goal is to increase the sustainability and the value in the landscape. Oh gosh. Yeah, this is more than we want to know. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that looks like the end of our presentation for tonight. I hope this was interesting for you. It was kind of challenging for me, I will admit, especially after I lost my notes. I'm glad I've been studying it since last week. But so does anybody have any questions about what we've talked about tonight or any of the other topics? We've got a little bit of time if y'all want to just throw out some question and answer
Or anything.
for anything. Throw it at me.
So I went to I'm getting ready to reseed, and I know I need to get it down. So I went to the co-op to get some seed, and the guy recommended Kentucky 31.
Mhm.
But I heard, I don't know anything about grass seed. I never had to deal with that before, so I took
Right.
his recommendation. I bought a 50-pound bag of Kentucky 31. I got about 6,000 square feet I need to seed.
Yeah.
So I needed a big bag.
Mhm.
But should I be mixing that with something?
You can overseed, mix it in with a turf type tall fescue, just a tall fescue.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like Rebel or something like that. It'll be a blend of different turf grasses.
Okay.
So your Kentucky 31 is going to be okay. You're going to get. I don't mind if I take this as my granddaughter. I'm sorry, I get a little worried when she calls. So hold that thought. Yes, dear. Hello. A blanket? I don't know. No, I don't. Not that I know of. Okay, I'm here in front of the class talking to you. Okay, I'll be home in a little bit. Sorry.
Everything's okay.
Yeah, everything's fine. She needs a sewing kit. Anyway, okay, so you can touch 31 will be okay. Yeah, not very rough. Okay, so if you mix it in with her type thing, the Kentucky 31 is going to be the least expensive. So it is.
Maybe he thought I would be cost conscientious. I never even mentioned that.
Yeah, that's going to be their first recommendation because they're thinking, pasture grass or things like that. That's kind of the way the mindset.
And if you have some, if you put it in the shade area, you need to get some shade tolerance.
Yes.
Yeah, and that'll get pretty easy done. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we have the creeping fescues, and so we'll hear about that during our first class. We've got Mitchell Moats going to teach that.
I just don't want it to be super noticeable because I have existing grass and I need it to kind of blend.
It will, and it just depends on how you keep it and things like that, and letting it go to seed and stuff like that. So you can combine the two. So if you've already got it out there, then
I don't have it out there, but I already cut the bag open.
no.
But it's not like I can turn it.
No. Yeah, I know it's expensive, but it's cheaper than the tall fescue. So that's probably why they sold that.
And that's all, I mean, we're gonna hear that.
The Kentucky 31. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The other, yeah.
I had a fun integrated pest management on things to do, tools of prevention.
Okay.
They did not mention keeping your flower beds clean, leaves.
Okay. That's kind of a source of contention between some people, especially the native plant people or the pollinators. all that debris and such gives a home to the little eggs for the pollinators and things like that. So some people will say, don't clean up the debris. Other people say, clean up the debris and make it look all nice, trim, and proper. I would say it's up to you, and it depends on the look that you're looking for. If it's on the front of your landscape, I'm gonna clean it up.
If you're trying to grow roses and you don't keep up the
Right.
black spot and the
Yeah.
dead tissue.
Yeah.
You'll never
Yeah.
win.
Yeah, you're right. And just find the name on that publication on who wrote that chapter.
They didn't mention, they didn't mention removing debris at all.
Let me see if I can.
And that, it's like leave the leaves.
It's like you're going out like rust disease. It's like going out spreading rust everywhere. It's the same principle with leaves.
If there's disease, but if there isn't disease,
There you go.
then
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and quit recording. I've got these things noted. So Zoom people, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Carla.
Okay. Okay, let me just,
Worry about wildfire.
where'd she go?
And
Benita Martin says she's.
Oh, yeah.
All right.